Hello, dear friends. My name is Ruth and I'm 69 years old. What I'm about to share happened only 6 months ago, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything. Some of you may think I was too harsh, others may say I didn't go far enough. But let me tell you my story from the very beginning, and you can judge for yourselves. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel Vintage Revenge Stories. We're building a community of amazing women who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. I lived in the same house in the suburbs of Denver for 42 years. My late husband Robert and I bought it when our son Michael was just 5 years old. It's a modest two-story colonial with a white picket fence, the American dream and all that. Robert passed away 8 years ago, and since then, it's just been me and the memories in that house. Michael is my only son. He's 38 now, married to a woman named Jessica for 7 years. I'll be honest with you, I never really got along with Jessica. There was always something about her that made me uneasy. Maybe it was the way she smiled at me, but it never reached her eyes, or the way she made little comments about my cooking, my housekeeping, even my choice of TV shows. Nothing openly rude, but those tiny cuts that build up over time. But Michael loved her, so I kept my mouth shut. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We swallow our words for the sake of family harmony. Everything changed last October. Michael worked as a project manager for a construction company. And with the economy being what it is, layoffs started happening. He'd been there for 12 years, but seniority doesn't count for much when companies are cutting costs. He came over to my house that Tuesday night, looking defeated in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager dealing with his father's cancer diagnosis. "Mom," he said, sitting down at the kitchen table where I'd helped him with homework for years, "I lost my job today." My heart broke for him. I made coffee the way he likes it, 2 sugars and a splash of cream, and sat across from him. "What happened, sweetheart?" He explained about the layoffs, how 23 people had been let go that day. His severance might last them 2 months if they were very careful with money. Jessica wasn't working at the time. She'd been talking about starting her own photography business, but it hadn't gotten off the ground yet. "We might lose the apartment," he said, staring down into his coffee cup. "The rent is $1,500 a month, and without my income—" I didn't even hesitate. "Move in here," I said. "You and Jessica, there's plenty of space, and it'll give you time to get back on your feet." The relief on his face was immediate. "Are you sure, Mom? I mean, it could take a few months." "Michael, this is your home too. It always has been. Your old room is exactly the same, and the guest room has a full bed. You two can work out what's best." So they moved in the following weekend. I helped them pack, even drove the moving truck myself, something that seemed to surprise Jessica, that I could still do at my age. I suppose she thought 69 meant incapable. The first weeks weren't so bad. Michael spent his days job hunting, sending out resumes, going to interviews. Jessica claimed she was working on her photography business, though I mostly saw her on the laptop or phone scrolling through social media. I tried to give them space while still making them feel welcome. I cooked dinner every night, pot roast, meatloaf, chicken casserole, all of Michael's childhood favorites. I did their laundry without being asked. I even offered to pay for groceries, but Michael insisted they could at least handle that. But then I started noticing things, small things at first. Jessica would roll her eyes when I told stories about Michael's childhood. When I mentioned something about the house, like how Robert and I planted the oak tree in the front yard the year Michael was born, she'd make comments like, "That tree is way too big now. It's probably damaging the foundation." She left messes for me to clean up, coffee rings on my antique tables, towels on the bathroom floor, dishes in the sink that sat there until I washed them. When I gently mentioned it, she would sweetly apologize and promise to be more careful. But it kept happening. Michael didn't see it, of course. He was stressed about finding work, spending hours every day on applications and interviews. The few times I tried to mention Jessica's behavior, he brushed it off. "She's stressed too, Mom. This is hard on both of us." I understood stress. I had lived through Robert's illness, his death, raising Michael as a single mother in his final years at home. I knew what real hardship looked like, but I also knew the difference between stress and disrespect. By around the 6th week, her comments became more pointed. Jessica would mention how the house was outdated, how the kitchen needed a complete renovation, how the hardwood floors were showing their age, how the neighborhood was going downhill. "This place could be worth so much more with the right upgrades," she'd say, usually when Michael wasn't around to hear. I just smiled and changed the subject. This was my home, filled with decades of memories. Every scratch on those floors told a story. The kitchen where I taught Michael to flip pancakes on Saturday mornings. The living room where we watched countless movies together. The garden where Robert and I spent summer evenings planning our retirement. But Jessica saw dollar signs where I saw memories. The job search wasn't going well. Michael had several interviews, but nothing panned out. The construction industry was still struggling, and there were too many experienced people competing for too few positions. His severance was running out, and I could see the stress wearing him down. I started thinking about offering financial help. I had Robert's life insurance, my Social Security, and some savings. Not a fortune, but enough to help my son through a rough patch. That's what parents do, right? We help our children when they need it. But before I could make the offer, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. It was a Thursday night in early December. I had gone upstairs to grab a sweater from my room and heard voices coming from the guest room where Michael and Jessica were staying. The door was slightly open, and I could hear them clearly. "This is taking forever," Jessica was saying. "How long are we supposed to stay here?" "I'm trying, Jess. The job market is terrible right now." "Maybe that's not the real issue," she said. I could hear the calculation in her voice. "Maybe we're looking at this the wrong way." "What do you mean?" There was a pause, and then Jessica's voice dropped lower. I found myself holding my breath, straining to listen. "Michael, your mother is 69 years old. She really shouldn't be living alone in a house this size. It's not safe. Mom is perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Really. I've noticed things. Sometimes she forgets to lock the door. Yesterday, she left the stove on after making lunch. And these stairs, what happens when she falls?" I wanted to barge in right then and tell them I had never left the stove on, never forgotten to lock the door. But something kept me quiet, listening in the shadows. "What are you suggesting?" Michael asked. "I'm suggesting maybe it's time to start thinking about assisted living for her. There are some really good places in Denver. She'd have people to look after her, activities, other seniors to socialize with." "You want me to put my mother in a nursing home?" "Not a nursing home. Assisted living. It's different. It's for her own good, Michael." And Her voice dropped even lower. It would also solve our housing problem permanently. My blood ran cold. The house would be ours, Michael asked, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Interest. Consideration. Well, yes. I mean, you're her only son. It would go to you eventually anyway. This way, she gets the care she needs and we get the stability we need. We could fix this place up, maybe refinance and use the equity to finally launch my business properly. The silence stretched on forever. I was pressed against the wall outside their door, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Finally, Michael spoke. I don't know, Jess. It feels wrong. Does it feel wrong? Or does it feel practical? Your mother raised you, sacrificed for you, and now you have a chance to make sure she's properly cared for while also securing your own future. That's not wrong, Michael. That's responsible. But she loves this house. She loves you more, and if you explain it the right way, present it as concern for her safety and well-being, she'll understand. She might even feel relieved. Another long pause. Think about it, Jessica continued. We could get out of this limbo. We could have a real plan, a real future, and your mother would be somewhere safe with professional care. I need to think about it. Of course, just don't take too long. Every day we wait is another day we're stuck in this situation. I heard movement in the room and quickly hurried back downstairs, my mind spinning. My son, my only son, the boy I raised alone after his father died, was considering putting me in a home so he and his wife could have my house, the house where I nursed him through chickenpox, where I celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every achievement, where Robert and I planned to grow old together, where I imagined living out my final years surrounded by the memories of a lifetime. And Jessica wanted to sell it all to start a photography business. I sat in the living room that night, staring at the Christmas tree I had set up just a few days earlier. The same artificial tree Robert and I had bought 20 years ago, with ornaments collected over decades. Some were handmade by Michael back in elementary school. Others were souvenirs from family vacations. Each one told a story, and Jessica wanted to sell it all to start a photography business. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything I'd heard, trying to make sense of it. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Jessica was just thinking out loud and Michael would never actually go through with it. But in the days that followed, I began noticing things I had missed before. Jessica would make comments about how challenging it must be for someone my age to maintain such a large house. She'd point out every little thing that needed fixing: a squeaky door, a loose railing, a leaky faucet. "Ruth, you really should have someone look at that," she'd say with fake concern. "Safety is so important at your age." Michael also started asking me strange questions. How was I feeling? Was I getting enough sleep? Did I ever feel overwhelmed by the upkeep of the house? I pretended not to notice, watching them carefully. I needed to know just how far they were willing to take this. The answer came 2 weeks later. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I overheard them talking in the living room. They thought I couldn't hear over the sizzling of the frying pan, but I had turned the heat down and was catching every word. "I talked to the place on Cherry Creek Drive," Jessica was saying. "Sunset Manor. They have an opening, and it's really nice. More like a hotel than anything else." "How much does it cost?" Michael asked. $4,000 a month, but they have different payment options. And Michael, I researched how much houses in this neighborhood are selling for. Even without renovations, this place would sell for at least $400,000, maybe more. $400,000. My house, my memories, my life, reduced to a dollar amount that would solve their problems. The hardest part will be convincing her, Michael said. Leave that to me, Jessica replied. I've been researching how to approach these conversations. The key is making her think it was her idea, or at least that it's inevitable. We start by talking about how isolated she is here, how she would benefit from more social interaction. Then we mention some small safety concerns, nothing dramatic, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. And if she refuses? She won't. Not if we do it right. We'll take her to visit Sunset Manor. Let her see how nice it is. We'll talk about how much easier it would be for her, how she wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or upkeep. We'll make it seem like we're doing her a favor. I still feel guilty about this. Michael, your mother is going to need care eventually anyway. We're just being proactive. And in the meantime, we'll have a stable foundation to rebuild our lives. It's a win-win situation. I turned off the stove and stood there in my kitchen, spatula in hand, feeling like my entire world was crumbling around me. My son, the one I had sacrificed everything for, was planning to manipulate me into giving up my home. But you know what? 42 years in the corporate world before I retired teaches you a thing or two about strategy. Robert always said I had a good head for business. And in that moment, I decided it was time to prove him right. I spent the following week planning. I called my attorney, Donald Peterson, who had handled Robert's will and had been our family lawyer for over 20 years. I explained the situation carefully, leaving out some of the more emotional details and focusing only on the facts. Ruth, he said, I need to ask you directly. Do you feel pressured to make decisions about your living situation? Not yet, but I believe I soon will. And you are completely competent to make your own decisions. No one could claim otherwise. Donald, I balance my checkbook to the penny every month. I manage all of my own medications. I drive myself to appointments. And I renewed my driver's license last month with perfect scores on all the tests. I'm sharp as a tack. He laughed. I've known you for 20 years, Ruth. I have no doubts about your competence. What do you need from me? I told him my plan. 3 days later, Jessica brought up Sunset Manor over dinner. She had printed brochures and was showing me pictures of smiling seniors playing cards and doing yoga. It looks charming, I said, studying the photos. Very institutional. Oh no, it's not institutional at all, she said quickly. It's more like a community. You'd have your own apartment, but with the security of knowing help is available if you need it. Michael was pushing his food around on his plate, avoiding eye contact. And I suppose this apartment would be much smaller than what I'm used to, I said. Well, yes, but think how much easier it would be to maintain. No more worrying about yard work or repairs or cleaning all those rooms you don't really use. I nodded thoughtfully. And what would happen to this house? Jessica and Michael exchanged a glance. Well, Jessica said carefully, Michael is your only heir, so eventually the house would go to Michael, I finished. I see. Mom, we're not trying to push you out, Michael finally spoke. We're just worried about you living alone. This house is a lot of work and you're not getting any younger. You're right, I said, surprising them both. I'm not getting any younger. And this house is a lot of work. Jessica's eyes lit up. So you'll consider it? I'll consider all of my options, I said carefully. In the days that followed, they intensified their campaign. Jessica pointed out every little thing that needed attention around the house. A burned-out light bulb became a safety hazard because I would have to climb a ladder to replace it. A sticking door became proof that I couldn't properly maintain the home. Michael began talking about how isolated I was, how I needed more social interaction. Never mind that I had friends at church, neighbors I'd known for decades, and a book club that met every Tuesday. You'd meet so many new people at Sunset Manor, he'd say. People your age with similar interests. They even arranged a tour. I agreed to go, curious to see just how far they would take this charade. Sunset Manor was actually very nice, clean, well-run, with activities and amenities that would appeal to many seniors. But it wasn't home. It was exactly what Jessica had first called it, institutional. The apartment they showed me was maybe 500 square feet, with beige walls and furniture that looked like it had been borrowed from a hotel. Our staff can assist with medication management, the tour guide explained. We have a dining hall where meals are provided, housekeeping services, transportation to appointments. Sounds like you handle everything, I said. That's the idea. Our residents don't have to worry about any of the stresses of maintaining their own homes. On the way back, Jessica was practically glowing. Wasn't it wonderful? And did you see how friendly everyone was? Very friendly, I agreed. So, what do you think? Michael asked. I think I need time to process everything. That night, they must have thought they had convinced me because I overheard them talking again. She's going to say yes, Jessica said. I could see it on her face during the tour. How soon could we move forward? Michael asked. I already put her on the waiting list, just in case. If she agrees, she could move in within a month. A month? Michael sounded surprised. That seems fast. Strike while the iron's hot, Jessica said. The longer we wait, the more time she has to change her mind. And the house? We'll need a proper appraisal, but I've already spoken to a friend who's a real estate agent. She thinks we could put it on the market by spring. They were planning to sell my house before I was even settled into the nursing home. That was when I made my decision. I called Donald Peterson the next morning. I'm ready to move forward with what we discussed. Are you absolutely sure about this, Ruth? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. 2 days later, Michael and Jessica announced that they were planning a weekend trip to visit her sister in Phoenix. We haven't had a break in months, Jessica explained, and Sarah's been asking us to visit for ages. How long will you be gone? I asked. Just 4 days, Friday through Monday. Will you be all right here on your own? I nearly laughed. I'd been living alone for 8 years since Robert died, but now they were worried about 4 days. I think I can manage, I said. They left early Friday morning. Jessica gave me a goodbye hug, the first physical display of affection she'd shown me since they moved in. Use this weekend to really think about Sunset Manor, she said. I have a good feeling about it. I'll definitely think about my future, I promised. The moment their car disappeared around the corner, I got to work. I had been quietly moving my most precious belongings into a storage unit I rented across town. Photo albums, Robert's watch, my mother's china, Michael's school pictures and report cards. Anything with sentimental value that couldn't be replaced. Over the past 2 weeks, I had also been in touch with a real estate investment company that specialized in quick sales. Not the kind of deal that would get me top dollar, but one that could close fast with minimal complications. On Friday afternoon, I met with the buyers. They had already done a preliminary inspection and made an offer. It was less than Jessica's $400,000 estimate, but it was cash, and they could close by Wednesday. I accepted. Saturday morning, I began packing the rest of my essentials: clothes, books, kitchen items I'd need. I had found a lovely senior community in Boulder, not assisted living, but independent housing designed for people over 55. I had already put a deposit down on a 2-bedroom condo with a view of the mountains. On Sunday, I had the house professionally cleaned from top to bottom. I wanted to leave it in perfect condition. By Monday morning, while Michael and Jessica were likely boarding their return flight, I was signing the closing papers. By Monday afternoon, the new owners, a young couple with 2 small children, were getting their keys and moving in. I was staying at a nearby hotel, waiting. Michael called me from the airport around 5 o'clock. "Hi, Mom. We're about to board our connection. We should be home around 9. Do you need us to pick up anything for dinner?" "No, sweetheart. I'm fine. Have a safe flight." "How was your weekend? Did you think about what we talked about?" "Oh yes, I thought about it a great deal. We'll talk when you get home." I was sitting in my rental car across the street when their cab pulled up at 9:15. I watched Michael pay the driver while Jessica grabbed the luggage from the trunk. They walked up to the front door and Michael pulled out his keys. But the key didn't work. From where I was parked, I could see them standing on the porch, looking confused. Michael tried the key again. Then Jessica tried. Michael walked around to check the back door, while Jessica stayed on the front porch with the bags. Then the front door opened. But it wasn't me who answered. It was David Chen, the new homeowner, holding his 18-month-old daughter. I couldn't hear the conversation from across the street, but I could see the gestures. David explaining something, Michael waving his arms in disbelief, Jessica standing there with her mouth hanging open. My phone rang. Mom, what the hell is going on? There's some guy in our house saying he owns it, and he says you sold it to him." "Hi, Michael. Yes, I sold the house. Closed on it this morning." "You what?" "Mom, where are you?" "I'm at a hotel until Wednesday. Then I'm moving to Boulder." "Boulder? Mom, this isn't funny. Where are we supposed to live?" "Honestly, I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're both very capable adults." But that's impossible. You can't just sell your house without telling us." "Actually, Michael, I can. It's my house. My name is on the deed. I can sell it to whoever I want, whenever I want." "But we live here." "You were living there. You don't live there anymore." I could hear Jessica in the background, her voice shrill and panicked. "Ask about our stuff. Ask where all our things are." "Mom, our belongings are inside. Our clothes, I packed everything up and put it in storage. Unit 247 at Denver Self-Storage on Colfax Avenue. The first month's paid for, and here's the unit number and access code." I texted him the information. "This is insane. Mom, why would you do this? We were trying to help you." Michael, were you really trying to help me?" Silence. "I heard you, both of you, planning how to convince me to move into Sunset Manor so you could have my house, talking about how much money you could make. how you could use the equity to start Jessica's business. More silence. You were going to manipulate me into giving up my home, Michael, the house where I raised you, where your father and I built our life together. You were going to put me in an institution so you could profit off my memories. Mom, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I heard every word, Michael, every calculated word about how to make me think it was my idea, about how to approach the conversation so I wouldn't refuse. Now I could hear crying. Jessica, most likely realizing their plan had failed spectacularly. So you sold our house out from under us? Michael's voice was angry now. I sold my house, Michael. It was never yours. And you know what? I got less for it than I could have, because I needed to close quickly. I sacrificed profit to teach a lesson. What lesson? That actions have consequences. That betraying someone's trust, especially someone who loves you unconditionally, comes at a cost. So where are we supposed to sleep tonight? We don't have anywhere to go. I felt a moment of weakness. This was my son, standing on a stranger's porch with nowhere to turn. For just a second, I considered offering to pay for a hotel room to help them figure out their next steps. But then I remembered Jessica's voice. Strike while the iron is hot. The longer we wait, the more time she has to change her mind. You'll figure it out, I said. You're very resourceful. After all, you had this whole elaborate plan to get me out of my own house. I'm sure you can come up with something for yourselves. Mom, please. We're so sorry. We made a mistake, but we can fix this. Some mistakes can't be fixed, Michael. Some betrayals cut too deep. But you're our family. Yes, I am. And family doesn't scheme to put each other in nursing homes just so they can steal their houses. I hung up the phone. They called back 17 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning, Jessica left a voicemail. She was crying, apologizing, begging me to reconsider. She said they were desperate, that Michael losing his job had sent them into a panic and made them think irrationally. She promised they never would have gone through with it. But I had heard the calculation in her voice that night when I listened in. I had seen the dollar signs in her eyes when she talked about the value of the house. That wasn't panic. It was opportunism. Michael also left messages, first calling me cruel and vindictive, then pleading, promising we could work things out, finally, defeated, accepting that I wasn't going to change my mind. I moved to Boulder on Wednesday. My new condo is beautiful, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small patio with a view of the Flatirons. There's a community center with activities, but I can come and go as I please. I can have guests, cook my own meals, decorate however I like. I'm not isolated. I'm independent. I joined a new book club. I volunteer at the local animal shelter twice a week. I've made friends with my neighbors, Carol and Jim, retired teachers from California. Last month, I received a letter from Michael. A real letter, handwritten, not an email or text message. He apologized. He said he's had a lot of time to think about what happened and that he understands why I did what I did. He said he was ashamed of himself for going along with Jessica's plan, for even considering putting me somewhere I didn't want to be just so they could benefit financially. He also said they're getting divorced. Apparently, once they were homeless and out of options, Jessica's true colors came out. She blamed him for not being able to convince me to go along with their plan. She told him he was weak and useless, just like his mother. She moved in with a friend and filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Michael found a job in Seattle, not in construction but in project management for a tech company. He says it pays better than his old job, and he enjoys the work. He's renting a small apartment near the water. He asked if he could call me sometime, not to ask for anything, just to talk. I haven't decided if I'm ready for that conversation yet. Some of you might think I was too harsh, that I should have just sat them down, confronted them about what I overheard, given them a chance to explain. But here's the thing. They had plenty of chances to be honest with me. Instead, they chose manipulation. They chose to see me as an obstacle to their financial security rather than a person who deserved respect and honesty. Jessica saw me as a problem to be solved. Michael saw me as an inheritance to be accessed early. Neither of them saw me as a human being with my own wants, needs, and rights. Others might say I was vindictive, that I could have taught them a lesson without leaving them homeless. But I disagree. They were planning to leave me homeless too. They just wanted to dress it up as care and make me pay for the privilege. The house I sold. The young couple who bought it sent me a Christmas card last year. Their children are playing in the same backyard where Michael learned to ride his bike. They're making new memories in the place where I made mine. That house is still a home. It's just not my home anymore. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Better than okay. I'm happy. I wake up every morning in my condo with mountain views, and I make coffee for one in my small but perfectly comfortable kitchen. I read the newspaper on my patio and plan my day however I want to plan it. No one is plotting to ship me off to an institution. No one is tallying up the value of my belongings. No one is pretending to care about my well-being while really caring only about my assets. I learned something important through all of this. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. And being surrounded by family doesn't guarantee that you are loved or respected. I'm 69 years old, and I've never felt more in control of my own life. Some people say you can't choose your family, and that's true. But you can choose whether you let family members take advantage of you. You can choose to stand up for yourself, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. I don't know if Michael and I will ever have a relationship again. Part of me hopes we can find a way forward. He's still my son and I still love him. But it would have to be a different kind of relationship, built on mutual respect instead of assumed obligation. As for Jessica, I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for. I hope she learns that security built on someone else's downfall is never truly secure. And I hope anyone listening to this story remembers that elderly does not mean defenseless, that senior citizen does not mean doormat. We raised our children, built our careers, survived wars and recessions and losses and heartbreak. We are not obstacles to be cleared out of the way. We are not problems to be solved. We are human beings who deserve the same respect and consideration as anyone else, and sometimes we're a lot smarter than people give us credit for. The house in Denver sold for $320,000. I could have gotten more if I'd waited, prepared properly, negotiated with multiple buyers. But do you know how much that house really cost Michael and Jessica? Everything. And that, my dear friends, was exactly the price I wanted them to pay. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking away with your dignity intact, your independence preserved, and your future firmly in your own hands. I am Ruth. I'm 69 years old, and I am no one's burden, I am no one's victim, and I am no one's fool. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you to value the people in your life for who they are, not for what they have. And if you yourself are in your later years, I hope it reminds you that you always have choices, even when people try to convince you otherwise. especially then. The view of the mountains from my porch is beautiful this morning. I think I'll sit outside with my coffee and plan what I want to do with the rest of my day, because it's my day, in my house and my choice, and that makes all the difference in the world. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this story made you reflect, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, real-life stories like this one. Because in the end, every story is a chance to see life through new eyes.